yet another Power Pack panel at this point of time. Joining me on the broadcast is Anurag Batra. He is the chairman and the editor-in-chief of Business World, and who has very carefully curated this Power Pack panel. Is going to be super speakers, entrepreneurs from various stratas of society, various segments, various industries, and they are going to be going ahead and discussing their business plans and keeping in mind what has the budget unfurled for them all. Welcome all on my show. Mr. Asim Juneja, he is the CEO of Ranjit Tyres. Ms. Ramira Roy, she is the founder and chairperson of Seed. Mr. Lloyd Matias, he is the angel investor and business strategist. Mr. Raj Kumar Khandelwal, he is the CEO, Darshan Automotive Industries. It's great to have you all. Always fantastic to hear out views and opinions of you experts who have been going into business. You have been at the helm of affairs and coming out triumphant every single time. Dr. Batra, what's the agenda of the day? We've gone ahead and seen the budget.
Thank you so much.
How does it go ahead and bring about all these individuals and all these entities into one concrete picture at this point of time?
Thank you, Megha. You clearly said we are doing it in the backdrop of the budget. The startup sector has been, growing and contributing to India's GDP.
Yes.
The individuals on today's panels are very avid angel investors, and they support the start. So let me start by asking Lloyd Mathias. Lloyd, you left a corporate career to start a consulting. Subsequently, you morphed into being an advisor to startups and entrepreneurs. And in your personal capacity, you made 17 angel investments. Now tell us, how has been the budget for the, angel investing, segment from an angel investing standpoint?
Sectors. Yes, absolutely.
Has been the budget for the startups?
Thanks, Anurag, and thank you, Megha. I think, on the whole, the budget has, for the first time, kind of provided a nod or a positive, kind of impetus to the startup sector. And I think better late than never. If you just look at the last decade or so, I think the real impact that's come has really come out of a lot of the unicorns and the startups, right? The Paytms and the Baijus were nowhere in the scene. Today, if you look at some of India's largest players, at least when it comes to ad spends, the Dream 11, IPL, most of these companies are pretty much, a decade old. So I think the startups have provided India the much needed impetus when it comes to growth, when it comes to hiring a lot of people. I mean, just the number of delivery folks within Swiggy's and Zomato's, if you look at the Ubers and the Olas. So I think there's a big story within startups. So I'm glad in that sense, the Honorable Prime Minister, Finance Minister actually, kind of alluded and made a few, concessions to angel investors and the. I think the one big step which I think all of us would welcome is the whole permission for one-person companies. Earlier, as a startup founder, you necessarily had to have, at least a co-founder, and you need to have a board of directors. I think today you can pretty much register a one-person company. This is an excellent move, and it will kind of provide, single founders to incorporate companies, right? So I think it's one kind of clear way to improve the ease of doing business. I think that's one. The other great move, and I really, salute the finance minister on this, is reducing the compliance requirements for companies under 20 crore of revenue.
Yes.
Right? Earlier, the limit was 5 crores and a paid-up capital of 50 lakhs. Now it's been raised to 20 crores and a paid-up capital of 2 crores. I think that makes it much easier, because for a company in its early stage, to spend a lot of time working through compliances are necessarily not a good thing. So I think these two are very, very positive steps, and I wholeheartedly welcome them. But I think there's a lot more that could be done. And, as this program progresses, we certainly can talk about it. For example, the finance minister provided an extension of the tax holiday for companies from 1 year to 2 years. Now, we all know that startups in their first 2 years really don't make any cash profits. It's really beyond year 5, 6 coming. So I wish he'd taken a slightly more long-term view of that. But I think that's worthy of discussion. But the very fact that the finance minister provided some SOPs to angel investors, looked closely at the startup ecosystem, is a very, very positive step. And I wholeheartedly welcome that.
And while Lloyd, you feel there's been a course correction, if I may use that term, and an impetus both at the same point. Overall, what is your reaction to the budget, Lloyd?
I think overall it's very positive. I think given the fact that the economy was on limbo for about dismal year world over, I think it's very balanced. The fact that no change in personal income tax was a positive move. It addressed core issues: the health, medical, infrastructure. So I think, given the circumstances, I think it's an exceedingly good budget. Something that have not just gladdened investors, but has got something for all sections of society. So I really think, if the circumstances, this is truly, I would say, one of the very good budgets.
Okay, let me, Ramira, I was bringing you only as founder of Seed and who nurtures, the startup ecosystem, the founders, the early stage entrepreneurs. What is your take? You heard Lloyd give his inputs on how he sees the moves in the budget for the ecosystem of startups. What's your take?
Well, I endorse everything that he said. I just wanted to add that one of the major pushes in this budget has been the focus on the skilling sector, something which has been long forgotten or long ignored. It has brought it back into focus because the last 10 months, if anything, has taught us that right down to the grassroots is absolutely it's absolutely important if we were to progress and if our labor was to come up to certain standards. So, the tie-ups with Japan and UAE that have been forged, I hope that is taken to more countries. So everything that Mr. Mathews said and skilling is what I see as one of the most important parts of this budget.
What is your, kind of, if I may use cliche term, what is your, mark? How many marks do you give to the budget? Traditionally we started in business journalism. Every year we'd ask, so on 1 to 10, how many marks? Some journalists give it 11 on 10, but that's another matter of discussion. But how many marks would you give?
Being an optimist that I am, I think it's an 8 on 10 budget. It is one thing that it has done. It is trying to steady, whatever that was announced over the, other than bring in more and more aspects, which leaves everybody just grappling, especially those who have to implement these steps. We are still to see the trickle-down effects of all the, the packages that were given out last year. So in a way, this is a budget which is going to steady all of those, and hopefully we'll be able to see the impact of this, not in this quarter maybe, but the next quarter definitely.
And just to tell you, Ramina, you're right. The Prime Minister, in the context of budget, said that you have to look at the budget in context of what was done in the last 11 months. There were 4 mini budgets. The Finance Minister, the RBI made interventions to kind of revive the economy and also to initiate reforms process like in coal mining. So clearly, you had to see the budget in the context of what happened in the last 11 months. I would give it 9 on 10, if not 9.5 on 10, because I think within the limited leeway that the government had, the Finance Minister had, she did a fantastic job. And in the way she explained, she was very coherent, and it was very, very,
well,
if I may say, it was whatever she's proposing, very believable. Of course, what matters is right execution.
Doable, and I think something which will have a trickle-down effect and can be implemented rather than just large policies which you just keep wondering how this is going to ever reach the person who's going to take benefit from it.
Yeah, and the 2 big questions about the budget were, which I would like to ask all of you once. Did the budget end up creating demand? At the end of the day, the budget has to change the sentiment and create demand. And second is there was this big question, where will the government get the money from? We know with privatization, just LIC's privatization, to be able to fulfill all its commitments. And you have seen October, November, December, January had record GST collection. So let to Aseem Juneja. Aseem, you as an entrepreneur, what is your?
So for me, I think the biggest takeaway was the fact that there is going to be more capital expenditure, more laying of highways. I think around 8,500 kilometers of highway has been planned. And so my business is directly correlated to
mobility, connectivity, people traveling, the movements of goods and services.
It was a good move. Like if there would have been something more on the vehicle scrappage policy, and also probably
All right, there seems to be an audio bandwidth problem, and
Yeah.
let's include Lloyd also over here. Lloyd, do you want to come in over here with regards to the discussion we are holding? Lloyd, please unmute yourself.
Lloyd, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, Megha. Sorry, Anurag.
Yes.
I think just an extension to what Aseem was beginning to say. I think some of the steps in the direction in terms of the emphasis on infrastructure, on road building, I think is positive. And you have to understand that the moment you announce large infrastructure projects and funding for road building, that automatically translates into a lot of kind of grassroots level employment. I think there are a few kind of broad strokes towards the real estate sector. So I think, in terms of generating demand or putting money in consumers' hands, I think the finance minister has kind of addressed this through some of the concessions on certain sectors that actually will enable. But like you said, Anurag, we have to look at it in the light of the fact that at least thrice before the budget, virtually every quarter since the lockdown, the finance minister made broad stroke announcements, each time kind of opening up parts of the economy, focusing on the SME sector for one, or kind of, giving access loans to a lot of micro SMEs. I think all those were, in a sense, helping put some money into people's hands. And some reason for the little spurt that we saw in the last 3 months on GSTs, October, November, December were pretty good months, including Jan, I think is a result of some of these things coming good. I think the real impact will be seen, let's assume that once the vaccine rollout happens to a certain extent, maybe by June or so, I think the economy will be pretty much back to its kind of growth. The 11% GDP increase, I think is not impossible, but I think it'll take a few months. But I think directionally, she's unleashed a lot of the positive energies, and that's a great sign. And the stock markets, of course, reacted to that.
Yeah, Aseem, we lost your audio, so we brought in Lloyd. Go on, you were telling us your assessment of the budget. The moment we lost you were talking about your business is naturally dependent on
yes, am I audible now?
spending. Yes, you are, Aseem. Go on.
For us, from the tire industry perspective, obviously the greater the moving on the roads and better accessibility, the government connecting all these roads in the Bharat Mala network, our industry is going to get an impetus. And from a vehicle scrappage point of view, it would have been better if there would have been a few more points brought out on that. Other than that, from the budget point of view, I think that's about it.
Okay, let me go to Mr. Khandelwal. Mr. Khandelwal, one of the things this government has been trying to do in the last 6 years, especially last 11 months, is to give impetus to manufacturing, to give impetus to small and medium-sized enterprises. Now, from both these standpoints, from a manufacturing standpoint and an SME standpoint, what is your assessment of the budget?
Anurag, the budget has been defined, and it is a good balance between the expenditures and the incomings, and it will definitely increase the purchasing power of the individuals. And there are definite controls like import duty regimes and VAT regime, and definitely great relaxation for MSME by removing compulsory tax audits for turnover up to 10 crores with certain restrictions, of course, but there is good movement and support to the MSME in the enterprises.
Okay.
Definitely.
So,
yeah.
Go on, keep going.
Yeah. And it will definitely increase and the morale of the entrepreneurs, and definitely the demand will go up, and definitely when the demand will go up, the GST collection will go up, and definitely it is a will improve the economy all the way.
And if I may ask, you were on the show a couple of months back, and I asked you the question of manpower, the cost of manpower, and the availability of manpower. Give us, we talked to you in November, we're today talking to you in February. How is the situation on manpower changed, both when it comes to, skilled manpower and unskilled manpower?
See, as far as I see, skilled manpower is also available now. The people have started coming back to their cities. They were working, and unskilled, when the people have understood that skill is very important to work and grow. So more than more talking of and taking interest in technical things and technical manufacturing activities. So we feel that more and more people and even unskilled laborers are taking good interest to learn new things, and they are adopting the new management systems and technologies.
Okay, Ramira, let me bring you in. Again, this budget has been about social inclusion. As one of my panelists said on the budget day, this was a budget to heal the society, if you carefully look at it. And the theme of social inclusion that has been there in the last 6 budgets continued. Now, especially from a women entrepreneurship standpoint, I was expecting more kind of encouragement to women entrepreneurs. What do you say? What else could the finance minister could have done to kind of give women entrepreneurship?
I think probably, more loans available at cheaper rates is one thing that the women entrepreneurs would have looked at. But, considering the fact that the finance minister had to keep in mind so many segments, together, and yes, women entrepreneurs do provide a large chunk of the MSME sectors also. What I feel is that if we were able to tap into the packages which have already been rolled out in the last year, and that itself would give a huge impetus to women entrepreneurs, especially in early and middle stage, developing companies. Now, yes, we can look at what more could have been done, but like I said, it is whatever that has been given and whatever that has been dispersed, how to bring that down to people like us and more people, like me or Asim, who are looking to, attract funds, get those loans, how to use those loans. You have to also understand many of them are also first-time loan takers. They don't really have capital, or they're scared to take these loans. So how to assuage those fears, how to get them into this credit cycle is what I feel will help all of us grow together. So the focus has to be on how to access these funds, how to use these funds, and more probably mentors, probably people like Lloyd coming on board to look at how to mentor these organizations.
And Lloyd, if I had to ask you, if we did a survey, say of 2000 early stage startups, I'm using the word early stage, really early stage startups, what do you think is the mood of those entrepreneurs towards the economy, and what the budget augurs for the economy? I mean, budget is a vision document. Of course, it's a document of the finances of the government about, it's a statement of, intent of where the government would spend and what are the areas that are priority. But what is the response you're getting from the entrepreneurs that you interact with on account of business and economy, especially in the context of budget?
Great question, Anurag. I would say that a lot of entrepreneurs had a very, very, very depressing 2 quarters, right? Starting from mid-March, I would say all the way into September, because one, of course, no one expected the extent of what was upon us. Right, what began as possibly a 15-day, 21-day lockdown, and over time we realized that even now things are far from normal. So I think a lot of early stage businesses that work on very short cash cycles were struggling. They don't have long OD lines from banks, so they really struggled. So I think the move was really bad. I would say, though, that in a sense, post-November and December, people are beginning to pick up their pieces and slowly moving forward. So a lot of the smarter entrepreneurs did 2 things. One is, of course, they looked at alternate business models, what is called pivoting. They looked at changing some of their business models. 2 is they kind of obviously went overdrive on cash conservation, right? So whether it is getting rid of office spaces or, I think a lot of them did. So in a sense, a lot of them really tightened up their act. They refocused on their business. They reinvented and re-engineered their business, and that was positive. I think in a sense, there are some very positive green shoots in what the finance minister said. So there is a certain degree of, positiveness overall. What they realized also is that smaller early stage companies are more nimble. They can take decisions faster. they can take bold decisions, and they can quickly jump back on their feet, which is not so easy for large corporations, right? Where systems and policies tend to be, in a sense, almost like a bureaucratic hurdle. So I think the mood is lifting, but it's not great. It's a tough time to be an entrepreneur. The funding ecosystem is not as robust as it was a year and a half ago. That's the reality. Most VCs and most people who are kind of in the investing phase are kind of holding back. It's a bit of a wait and watch. So there's a little point. If I may, Anurag and Megha, just a reaction and a small contrarian point to the question you asked, Romira. I think the finance minister looking at the budget, by sectors like women, I think is a little unfair. I think we just have to unleash entrepreneurial spirits, be it man or woman. Let the better person succeed. I'm sure as good, if not better, entrepreneurs than most men. But I think looking at it by gender is a little retrograde, and that's just a point of view. Sorry, Megha, you were saying something.
No,
No,
Anurag, I wanted to
absolutely,
add to what Lloyd was saying. Decriminalization also of certain laws earlier has also lifted this.
In terms of compliance,
In terms of compliance, which used to be a huge hurdle for anyone who's starting a business. And two, the fact that you may or may not get angel investing ASAP, but you can probably look out to the public sector banks, to many of the policies which the government have rolled out for cheaper finance. So that is also something which many entrepreneurs are now positive towards and are opening up to. So you may or may not get $1 million just like that, but you can reach public banks, you can reach out to private sector banks to get those funds.
Yeah, and
I agree.
those are the compliances that have been relaxed, that have been made easier. And it is obviously a push in the right direction for the startup industry, for the MSME sector as well. The budget has been announced. There has been an impetus, especially on the digital economy and the startup sector. And that's exactly been the focus point of Businesswell NewsX initiative, Atmanirbhar Mission, for the past several weeks, months, ever since the economy went into lockdown and now is in the opening mode. So, Dr. Batra, what's next in the picture?
Thank you, Megha. Sometimes, at the end of the day, as Lloyd said, at the end of the day, business is about kind of reimagining your way of working, reimagining the business you are in, and, you have to right in times. So sometimes you put too much focus on what the budget does. But most entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs because they are able to see, businesses, ideas, business models in areas government doesn't see, don't see that. So really, entrepreneurs are in some way literally Atmanirbhar. They survive or thrive with or without policy. They find, niches to grow in. They find growing. So sometimes, yes, a budget can be a big catalyst in growth of sectors, and from a policy standpoint, create an enabling environment which can get entrepreneurs to blossom. But entrepreneurs, by definition, work in constraints and are able to imagine and reimagine their business in constraints. Let me start with Lloyd again. Lloyd, if you had to take a 12-month view of the economy, if we were to talk in next January, what is your sense of how the economy will pan out over the next 11, 12 months? Do you think we'll be back to our pre-COVID levels in the next few months and continue to grow from there? Or do you think it's another 18, 24 months away?
I'd be more optimistic, Anurag. I would say that the economy is, gradually getting back to its old mojo. And depending on how the vaccine rollout goes, and I'm very positive of how it's gone so far, I think pretty much by the third quarter of this year, which is really from the July to September quarter, it will be pretty good, right? So talking about next year, I think next year we should certainly be back to a very positive growth pace. And I'm saying this on account of two big factors. I think one is that, thanks to this big, the COVID, the pandemic, I think a lot of businesses have learned to force themselves to become more agile. They've tightened up their costs. They've looked at more innovative business models. So I think that thing would unleash a lot of growth prospects. Two is what is often called a little bit of pent up or revenge, that every one of us have gone without a holiday for the last 18 months. We haven't really gone out and dined in good restaurants. We haven't done the fun things that as human beings we love to do, going out meeting friends. I think the moment there's a sense that it's safe all around and one can move and the kind of COVID is a little behind us, I think people will start doing that with a vengeance. I've got a holiday plan and, I really want to, hopefully by that is going to be natural human tendency. So I think there's going to be a large bounce back, and I think that is going to be very positive. Plus, a lot of the steps announced in the last 2 quarters by the finance minister, I think a lot of that cash infusion will start working, right? When money comes into the hands of construction workers, of laborers, I think a lot of that money flows its way, trickles down back into the economy. So I think there's going to be a big bounce back starting from Q3 onwards this year.
So I'd like to add on here. So like Lloyd was mentioning that, a lot of people have this, they want to travel. So in the last few months, what we've been seeing, traveling within India, they've been driving a lot of their cars. They've been driving to short distances, maybe around 300, 500 kilometers. Because of that as well, our sale has shot up and we are seeing a lot of growth in our business.
Okay, that's good. You said 40%. You're
Yes.
telling me 40% sale of tires have gone up. Now,
Yes.
that really corroborates what Lloyd is saying. And I keep saying that, the fear factor was the people from consuming products and services, from being in a way that they were before COVID. And also, a lot of Indians were saving for the rainy day because they felt that if this lasts long, then they need to save.
Save
So,
also, and probably uncertainty around their employment was also another major saving, I think. One can see the green shoots coming because there's a huge upsurge in domestic travel, which I think in itself is great because there are very, again, coming back to entrepreneurs, can't help it. Smaller entrepreneurs who started, at home, stay at home vacations and so on, which is really, gathering steam. So I hope that trend continues.
okay, let me bring Mr. Khandelwal. Mr. Khandelwal, give us a sense of your own business and how you see your own business in the context of what has been happening in the economy, the fear factor going away, some semblance of normalcy. I wouldn't say we should be complacent and give up on all the protocols that we learned in COVID and new ways of doing business efficiently. We shouldn't throw them away, but give us a sense of what is your outlook for your own business.
See, our company is in manufacturing of fasteners, and most of the components are made for automobile industries and electronics industries and telecom industries. I feel that as the economy is growing up and there is a huge demand coming in, for demand for our components, our parts will definitely go up, and it will definitely put ourselves, our organization in a good future. As far as telecom industries is concerned, of course, it is little slow. Maybe it will take another 5 or 6 months or maybe even a year to pick up. But other consumables or like appliances and other projects like government that is running like LEDs and installation industries, that definitely demand is going to be very high, and we have to buckle up ourselves and be ready to meet the demand of the market.
Clearly, it shows that the industrial activity is picking up. That shows that the demand is picking up, and that augurs well for the country and for the economy. Let me ask all of four of you a question that is on everyone's mind, which is, and the day of the budget, the key question was, will this budget create demand? So I would want a response from all of you on how do you see this budget creating a demand, both in the short term, medium term, and long term. Let me start this time with Ramirare and go to all the other panelists.
Yes, it will definitely that demand. We will see a trickle down effect of that happening. Not this quarter, like I keep saying, third quarter. We will see the impact of all the schemes that have been announced. We can already see smaller green shoots in the travel sector, in the hospitality sector picking up. We will all, certain stabilization of jobs which are there, and also focus of corporates now to create more jobs or induce more jobs will also, release some help pick up that. The pent-up demand or the savings which people have done, I hope will translate into automobile sales, which we've seen already coming in. And something which I'm quietly the launch of the social sector exchange in India. something which is, had the seeds of which have been sown. But we should see the launch of that, which will help more and more social sector organizations list themselves and also gain funding and funds for their organizations. So with that, I see demand picking up both short-term, long-term, and medium-term.
You touched upon an important point, and I'll get Lloyd to come in, that when it comes to funds focus, a lot of funds are putting their focus on ESG. ESG will become bigger and bigger and bigger. So really, that augurs well for the environment. We know that sustainability is real. We need to approach sustainability. Climate change is real. Lloyd, we're very arrogant. We say we'll save Mother Earth. I mean, who are we to save Mother Earth?
Mother Earth has taught us
Mother Earth will
last year.
reinvent itself many times, and we have to save ourselves, but we know what happens in one part of the world impacts all of us. ESG focused funds will only grow. Lloyd, your commentary on it will end up creating demand.
Yeah, I think a great point that Romira touched upon, Anurag, is really, and just briefly to address that, I think clearly this, I see a lot of the early stage, even the larger, the private equity companies, looking at the ESG space, the whole idea of, environment, social impact, and governance. I think that has now become mainstream. It's no longer a nice to do. I think investors are recognizing that companies with good ESG norms also are profitable companies. So the belief is that it's not, earlier it was, people looked at it as an add-on. Once you do all the good corporate business things, then you might want to do a little CSR on the side. I think the lessons of last year, what happened to Yes Bank, and we know of a few cases, really point to the fact that ESG is now mainstream. I think that's very positive. Back to your question, Anurag, about demand generation. Like I said, I think there's a lot of positive steps that have unleashed. I think right now the only holdback for a lot of people is the relative level of personal confidence. People are still a little unsure about jobs, about security. The other sector which possibly is still watching is a lot of people in India, depend on rental incomes, right? Retired people who have houses. Now, during the course of the pandemic, obviously we saw a lot of mass migration of people moving out, right? And those who are coming back are now negotiating their rental and lease contracts. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a squeeze there. So a lot of the discretionary income for people that came out of rental leases and monthly rentals, I think that is going to be different. Very a good sign. Hopes that the overall impact of the various policies announced, will unleash positive demand. I'm very buoyant on the fact that the focus on infrastructure, which is really about construction and building projects and such like, I think we'll get a lot more money into the hands of a lot more people. And that is what kind of really fuels demand at the grassroots level. That's what FMCG companies are excited about, consumer durable companies are excited about. And like I said, starting Q3, I'm hoping to see a very, very positive trend.
Okay, Mr. Khandel, it will end up creating demand in a big way. And I'll ask the same question to Aseem.
Definitely. I will say. Normally, in budget, everybody, like a common man, expects that income tax rate will come down and he will be able to save more. Now, the government's focus is not to save more on taxes, but to create more opportunities and more income, so that even a higher tax of amount to pay, like income tax, it is not a burden on them. So if the income is more, demand is more, income is more, and definitely their purchasing power is increasing and they are flourishing. So that sort of feeling and comfort we are looking forward in this budget analysis.
And by the way, when you heard the finance minister making a budget speech and subsequently explaining that in a press conference and in our various interviews, she's clearly been able to build a case which pretty much is in sync with what you're saying, that with the measures we've taken, it will create demand. With the spending we'll do, it will create demand, and it will bring back money into the government's coffers to be able to plow back. So in some way, she was calibrating the growth. She was being a catalyst in the way the government is looking at the future, and that's the role of a government. Aseem, your sector has benefited. You talked about 40% growth in the sales of tires, and clearly sectors that is doing very. You talked about hospitality. You know, people are driving down to nearby destination.
Yes.
Domestic leisure tourism is up because they want to go in safe personal mobile spaces. So
Yes.
clearly they're driving down close to their homes, or then that's why they're using personal cars. And
so
tell us, do you see that trend to continue and the sales of tires to go up?
I feel so. Like one of the panelists mentioned that this budget had a precursor of four mini budgets. So obviously, there's a lot of easy money available. Interest rates are down. Many people are buying cars like never before. You won't believe it, but there is a lot of shortage. There are a lot of waiting periods again. The discounts that car companies have been giving are now much lesser than previous. So I see a lot of positivity. I see a lot of confidence amongst people that their incomes are going to sustain, their incomes are going to increase. And definitely on your question, increased mobility will be there for probably 6 to 8 months, at least till the time that the vaccination is rolled out to many more people. I feel we can expect a very robust next 1 year in terms of automobile sales and tire sales.
Okay. And again, two sectors that were left out in the budget because they're demand sectors. One was hospitality, and the finance ministry officials have indicated that post vaccination drive becoming even covering larger number of people, corona receding, these industries may get some interventions which may help the industries. The two industries that I'm talking of, one is the travel tourism hospitality industry, the other was the cinema exhibition industry. Now, if you look at the cinema exhibition industry, from a movie like Master, you've already seen the 200 crores of business in lockdown when it is open in limited, territories. It shows that supports Lloyd's point that in certain categories there is a pent-up demand. People want to go out, spend, experience. So clearly, it augurs well for whether the domestic tourism industry in terms of the homestays and vacations near where vacations, and in terms of we all are reaching to go to a cinema hall. It's an experience and a big screen. At least for people like me and Lloyd, we're used to watching movie on a big screen. Unlike millennials who may or may not like that. I'm not saying they don't like that. So
that's the whole other debate, Anurag, between big screens and OTT, I guess.
We had a whole show on this, and I did ask my panelists who both produce content and are exhibitors. I read an article in a venerable, European publication which built a case 6 months back that only us, people like me who are on the wrong side of age, miss cinema halls. But millennials, they don't miss cinema halls because they have no sense of nostalgia or any emotive experience with cinema halls. But that is in India is a different country where a lot of young people go out with their families, watch cinema together. They may also go out with their friends and do it alone. So it's an outing. It's not. And our cinemas are still vibrant. And I told you, Master's 200 crore collection proves the point. In theory it's right, but in practicality it doesn't happen. But let me move to another question. Again, I did ask two of you were on my show earlier in the year, along with Megha and Rishabh, Uday and Vineet. But when we are in February 2021, what are the habits that we picked up in 2020 are likely to stay now that at some stage we'll have the choice and not just the compulsion of doing certain things? I mean, we are doing this show. I'm doing it from my home. Possibly Megha is doing it from our home. Traditionally, I'll go to the studio, sit down with Megha in the studio and do it. But whether it's education, whether it's cinema, whether it's, work, tell us what are the habits we are likely to stay on in 2021 and what are the habits that were temporary because we had no choice. Let me start with Aseem first and then go around the house.
So we've already touched upon these points, but I think since international flights are not really opened up with many countries, I think for the time being, a lot of demand will be there for local travel. and hence sale for our business is expected to be robust for the coming year. Some more habits which are I think have done is working from home. A lot of people in the state of Andhra Pradesh are into tech jobs. Initially, they used to travel from Hyderabad, Chennai, or Bangalore every alternate weekend or once in 4 weekends. But now we are seeing that all of these people are driving down once and for all and staying here with their parents and working from home. I think this is here to stay in the coming few years as well.
What else? See, on work from home, I call it work from anywhere. You can work from a cafe, from a hotel, from office, from home. You can work from anywhere. But I feel there are certain tasks that cannot be worked from home. For example, if you're in the manufacturing sector, you're in the hospitality sector, you can't do that from home. And I may dare not necessarily the productivity from home for everyone is the same. There are more motivated people who are, and their functions are such that they can work from home. So I think we were doing it because we didn't have a choice, and human beings rationalize very fast. So we saw the positives in the way we were working. But now that we'll have an option, I think a lot of offices will be back to at least giving a choice to its colleagues to come back. And I keep saying it, the more digital, virtual grows, the value of human connect goes away, becomes even more important. It doesn't go away. You know, there's a more premium on doing something physically. So you possibly will do a lot of things physically when you feel they're very, very, it's important to meet somebody, you want to meet someone, then you would make the extra effort to driving down. Because the traffic is pretty much back. In the city of Delhi, it is pretty much back to normal. You know, last evening I was traveling and I thought it was like, it was regular days. Ramvira, let me come to you and ask you about what are the habits that are likely to stick and what are the habits go away.
Well, I think one habit that is likely to stick is to understand that we need to stretch each and every resource, each and every rupee to the maximum amount possible, whether it is in terms of hiring space, whether it is in terms of using petrol or fuel to move from place to place, whether it is in times of our productivity at home or in office. I think that's the one lesson that we've learned. The second, and I think that's here to stay, agile working is here to stay, whether it is work from home, work from cafe. You don't necessarily need to go to a person's office to meet them. I think that's in a way saves time, makes it efficient. The number of Zoom calls, the number of meetings which happened, and the number of business dealings, the way it has eased the last, just in terms of being able to get somebody's time, not having to send teams back and forth, is also something which I think is here to stay. Yes, but there are certain sectors which, like manufacturing, steel, all of these require people, require connect, factories have to run, and so on. So yes, we will all have to make that choice. I think each organization will make it depending on what their necessity is. But I think one thing that we can all take away safely is learn to appreciate the resources you have and stretch them to the maximum point possible.
Absolutely. Less is more is clearly something that we've ingrained, and never say never that this can't happen this way, and that we know that when we are forced to do something in a certain way, we adapt. Mr. Khandelwal, before I bring in Lloyd, Mr. Khandelwal, what is your view?
See, as far as the distant working is has become a new concept of working now. It is rather we are enjoying that even. People are staying at home and working as per. So this is a more comfortable and more cozy atmosphere and style of working, and this efficiency is definitely higher because there is definitely a saving of time, money as well as energy. The meeting times have become shorter. Yes, last time before COVID, a meeting could take maybe 35 minutes time, but now the meeting is a meeting and that's all. So it is saving a lot of time and making more time for new opportunities and new ideas of working. That's good.
Okay, Lloyd, you've been a professor. You worked in India, you worked in Singapore, now you work with startups who are trying to kind of create products, services, ideas for this new way of working, for this new 3C economy, collab, reckless and compassionate. Give us a sense of what are the choices we'll make and what are the habits that were temporary.
I think one thing that COVID has taught all of us is personal hygiene. That everyone is very clean, not just hygiene, but also how to build your immunity. Suddenly kind of brought the focus back on health. A lot of us suddenly realized that health and wellness is very integral to our existence. So I think that's been a hard reminder, and I hope some of this will continue. Our standards of personal hygiene, how we kind of behave when we are outside the home. I think that's one. The second, like Romira pointed out, is this whole blended remote working and learning, right? It won't just be 100% going back to office. Increasingly, offices will tighten their spaces, as will schools and colleges, right? So there'll be a blended format of learning and working, which is going to become a way of life. Right? It's not that we're going to completely forget and discard Zoom once it's over. I think that's going to be a way of life. The third thing that I see, and a lot of millennials and startups that I work with, is people have suddenly realized the importance of having that little saving. A lot of young people today, they kind of live, on leases and rentals and, with a view that income is always constant. I think this last 10 months have taught us that there's no guarantee to permanent income. So you need to provide for a little safety bucket, right? When things go wrong, you have to learn to live out of what you've already saved. So I think it's putting the focus back. As Indians, we still are very good on saving. But I think in the last 10 or 15 years, a lot of younger people have almost forgotten the concept of saving. I think that's brought back the focus. And the last point I'd like to make, and I think it's a tribute to what was done in the Aadhaar, is that a lot of government services today have been, thanks to COVID, e-enabled. You can get your driving license renewed. Thanks to the Aadhaar, a lot of direct benefit transfer. I'm told 80% of the subsidies that the government gave to small and medium companies and to the MNREGA level, they actually happened through the direct benefit transfer, the DBT. I think that's a very positive move. Today, that all court hearings are happening remotely.
Online,
Absolutely,
yes.
absolutely.
Yeah,
That's all important.
yeah,
Lloyd, you
yeah,
made very important points, pertinent points over here, worth mentioning and be discussed in greater detail. But now, we are coming to the fag end of this special bulletin. And my big question to you is going to be, what are perhaps the one big lockdown lesson? Or I wouldn't call it the lockdown because the economy is almost opened up completely. The last 10 months, what have they taught you? Let's start off with Mr. Rajkumar Khandelwal.
Yes. As far as this, I'd like to put focus on this budget, certain points that were being untouched or undressed. Definitely, like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is doing well. It is coming up with a good turnout. But what about the industries? What I believe that many of the startups and industries have a limited working capital, and when they have to start working, they have to look for some small spaces or convenient spaces which is cheaper in cost. But as far as the industrial growth development of India is, it is not as good as that like China and other countries, like there are definitely state-wise industrial development councils and corporations like HSIIDC or UPSIIDC. But I feel that these organizations and agencies are working like a property. Emphasis is on plotting and selling them off. That's all. But as far as the MSMEs are concerned, I believe that government should come up with a scheme like Pradhan Mantri Udyog Vistar Yojana somewhere, where the government can
have so that's an impetus that the government needs to go ahead and put forth with regards to the industry sector. I'll have to apologize. I'm extremely short of time at this point of time. I thank all my guests for joining me on this very special broadcast. Tomorrow again, Friday, 6 p.m. Don't forget to watch NewsX and Business World present Atmanirbhar Mission, where entrepreneurs discuss their agendas, their lockdown lessons, and what's the way forward.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.